My name is Christelle, and I am the Director of Education and Outreach for an organization called North Mountain Wildlife Rescue. And
Hi, I'm Forrest.
This is Forrest. Forrest is my son, and he also helps at our rescue. So this is actually the second video in our series we're doing right now on animals and the environment. Like so many families right now, we are home-based. We are not able to go out and do what we normally do, which is to go out to schools and other community venues to do programs on the environment, on wildlife, on animals, ecosystems, things like that. So we are creating this video series. The first video was on animal adaptations. This video we're doing today is we're going to talk about protected animals, animals who are protected that might be classified as endangered or threatened or something like that. So before we get started with that, just for some background, if you don't know us, North Mountain Wildlife Rescue, we're a nonprofit organization. We're located right here in Winchester, Virginia, in Frederick County. We have three main goals with North Mountain Wildlife Rescue. Our first goal is what the name says. We're a wildlife rescue, and that's how the organization started. So we take in injured and orphaned animals with the goal of rehabilitating them and release them out into the wild. So all the animals we take in that way, they're wild animals. They're native right here to Virginia. Our second goal at North Mountain is we do take in some animals who are not native. We take in animals that need care long term. So if we take in an exotic animal, say an exotic bird or an exotic reptile, and exotic means animals that don't belong to this area, they come from other parts of the world, they cannot be released into the wild. So some of those animals that we take in, we keep them long term, we provide them care throughout their lives, try to give them everything they need to be happy and healthy. And then a lot of those animals, we turn around, we use them for our educational programs. And education is actually our third goal. So, and it's one of our most important goals. We go out to schools, community venues, scout groups, churches. We've been at fairs and festivals. We take some of our animals that stay with us long term, and we utilize them to teach people about wildlife, about animals, about the environment, ecosystem, habitats, and all sorts of related topics. So today, like I said, we're going to talk about protected animals. Animals that are protected by international laws because for one reason or maybe for multiple reasons, their numbers are down in the wild. So before we start bringing out animals, and we have three animals we're going to talk about today that are protected species. Forrest, can you help me explain the different classifications of protection? So protections are defined by international law, and let's talk about a couple of the terms that we're going to use today. So first of all, let's start with the word endangered. So Forrest, what does the word endangered mean when we're talking about animals?
Well, endangered is when it's close to extinction and it needs protection.
Right. So an endangered animal, one that's classified legally as endangered, is one where the species, the numbers are very low in the wild, and there's a lot of concern that this species might go extinct if something doesn't happen to change that. So let's talk about the word extinct. What does extinct mean, Forrest?
Extinct means that species, the creature species is all of it is gone, that species is dead, say the dinosaurs.
Sure. The dinosaurs would be an example of extinct species because they were alive millions of years ago and they went extinct. So they're no longer on this earth. So extinct is when an animal is no longer found. Basically, they're completely gone from the earth. Their numbers have dwindled down to nothing, or it's at least to a point where there's none that we know of. They've looked and they've been researching for years and they can't find any more of these species. Now, sometimes we talk about species that are extinct in the wild as opposed to just extinct species. Now, Forrest, what does it mean when we just say an animal is extinct in the wild?
An animal that's extinct in the wild means there's no more left in the wild, but there's some left in captivity, at a zoo or an aquarium.
Sure. Some animals have become extinct from the wild, but there might be certain members of that species that are living at a zoo or an aquarium or some sort of conservation-based organization where they're trying to help that species survive. There may be none left in the wild, but the hope is with some of the animals in captivity that they can breed them and increase their numbers in captivity with the hope that someday, if the reasons for why they became extinct in the wild change, they can maybe be introduced back into their original habitats and be a species in the wild again. Now, Forrest, can you think of some examples of animals that have gone extinct?
Animals that have gone extinct.
You mentioned the dinosaurs, but that was millions of years ago. Can you think of some animals that have maybe gone extinct more recently, like here in the 21st century?
Like the Pinto Island tortoise and the West African black rhino.
Yeah, those are two great examples. The Pinto Island tortoise is one that just went extinct a few years ago. It was a member of the Galapagos tortoise family. It was a subspecies called the Pinto Island tortoise. And a few years ago, the very last member of that species passed away. He was living in captivity. To that point, they were extinct in the wild. He passed away a few years ago. He was over 100 years old. They have not been able to find any more of his particular subspecies of Galapagos tortoise, so they're now extinct in the wild. Forrest also mentioned the West African black rhino. Now, there's still rhinoceroses in the wild in Africa and Asia, but there's a specific subspecies from West Africa that is a type of black rhino that actually went extinct back in 2011. So we have not been able to find any more in the wild, and I believe there's none in captivity, so they believe that one is probably gone for good. So those are some classifications that we're going to use today. There's a couple others we're going to mention along the way, things like when an animal is vulnerable or threatened. We're going to talk about those, but we'll do those as we have the animals out and define those as we go along. So the first animal we're going to bring out today is actually a species that you will find right here in Virginia, but you won't find them in the Winchester area. They're actually found in another part of Virginia. Hi, sweetie.
So, like yesterday's video, we're going to start out with a turtle.
We didn't start out with a turtle last time.
Tortoise, whatever.
So this is a turtle. This is a species that is native here to Virginia. Forrest, can you tell them what type of turtle this is?
She's posing.
She is. She's a good poser. She likes to show off.
This is a diamondback terrapin.
Right. Now, diamondback terrapin, it's a big, long word. They are turtles that are native to Virginia, to actually most of the East Coast of the United States. You can find them all the way from like Mississippi and Florida all the way up into Maine. Like I said, here in Virginia, you won't see them in our area. We live in western area of Virginia, but they'll be found on the East Coast, closer to the ocean, because diamondback terrapins are what we call a brackish water turtle. Now, brackish water is water that has a higher salt content than fresh water, but it's not seawater. So this is not a sea turtle. You will not find her swimming around in the ocean or anything like that, but her species lives closer to the ocean, closer to the seashore. So they're found in a lot of the marshes and waterways, close to the beaches, where there is a higher salt content, because they're places where fresh water and seawater meet. So not as salty as the ocean, but saltier than, say, a freshwater lake or pond near your house. Now, this is the only species you'll find in North America that is a brackish water turtle. We have a lot of turtles here in North America, land turtles and aquatic turtles. However, this is the only one that actually survives and thrives in that brackish, that saltier water content. Now, we talked about how all the animals are protected. Diamondback terrapins are a protected species. There are international laws protecting them, and there's a few reasons for that. But before I go into the reasons, let's talk about her actual status. Now, she is not considered endangered internationally. The status for diamondback terrapins are actually differs from state to state. They're protected internationally, but depending on state, in some states like Rhode Island, diamondback turtles are actually considered endangered. Their numbers are so low down, they're concerned about them becoming extinct in Rhode Island. Now, in other states, like here in Virginia, they're actually classified as what we call a species of least concern. I'm sorry, that's wrong. They're classified as a species of concern. My bad. Don't want to confuse you. And all that means is that they're not endangered or vulnerable or threatened yet, but their numbers are down to a point where we are concerned that if certain changes are not made, they could become endangered, and then if they become endangered, they're at risk of becoming extinct someday. So let's talk about some of the reasons why a diamondback turtle, like our friend here, and we call her Jemmy, she is a female diamondback turtle. You can see that she's a really pretty turtle. She's got, they get their name Diamondback from the shells. I'm going to turn her a bit. She might flail around, but I won't do it for long. They're given the name for the markings along their back carapace shell here that kind of look like diamond-shaped patterns. So She's got spotting on her forehead, and all of this colors and patterns she has, that's all to help her to blend in for her environment. She is one of those animals that camouflages. They want to blend in. So let's talk about some of the reasons why diamondback terrapins, their numbers are down in the wild. Historically, and the problem with this has been going on for a while, because historically, diamondback terrapins were actually a very common food item. There used to be something that was a common thing that people used to eat like 100 years ago called terrapin stew. And it was made with diamondback terrapins. Now, some of you hear that, you might be, ooh, gross, who would eat a turtle? But turtles are actually very common food items in many parts of the world. And even here in the US, people used to eat turtles a lot more commonly. It's not as common as it used to be, but still, some people do eat them. But it became a huge problem because terrapins became so popular as a food items that they were over collecting them in the wild to use in stews and dishes and things like that. And that made their numbers drop way down, and they've never fully recovered from that. Now, nowadays, people don't eat them as much, and they are protected, but there are still things that are putting them at risk that is preventing their numbers from coming up as much as they should. One of the things is overcollection. Now, I mentioned they were used as food a lot in the past. Some people still do, not as common. But another problem we have is people are sometimes collecting them as pets. So if you ever go down to the shore, and we all love to go to the seashore in the summer, and down close to the shore sometimes you'll, especially during the warmer seasons, you'll find these little baby turtles walking around, and they are adorable. And people find them sometimes and they don't always realize what they are. And they think they're cute and they take them home and they want to make them a pet. And that's actually a bad thing to do. You should never actually take an animal from the wild. It's not good for the animal. They don't want to be kept in captivity. They don't want to be your pet. So there's many reasons, and we'll talk more about animals as pets in another video, but many reasons. But that's a bit of a problem because a lot of people take them home and try to keep them as pets, and they're taking them out of the wild, and that's keeping their numbers from increasing. Another reason why they are actually protected now is because there's so much development along the seashore. All the way along the East Coast, everybody loves to go to the beach. A lot of people like to live down there. There's so much development, houses, roads, shopping centers, all different kinds of businesses. And with that, it's taking up some of their habitat. And it's putting them in danger because as they move around, especially say when they want to lay their eggs, females come out of the water to lay their eggs. They'll come out, they'll walk a few hundred feet, dig a hole, deposit their eggs, bury the hole back up and walk away. That's basically all turtle mothers do. They don't stay with their nest or anything like that. But because they come out to land and there's so much development, a lot of their nesting sites have been destroyed. Or the turtles are at risk being out on land because there's so much development, they might get hit by a car or something like that. And it's actually very common that the female turtles, when they come out, a lot of times they don't really understand the danger of a road, so they're just walking somewhere trying to find a good place to nest, and they'll walk right across a road, and there's so much traffic down by the coast. So that's another problem. Another problem is general habitat loss due to things like development or some of their waterways becoming polluted. As things gets more developed, that means more runoff of pollutants, chemicals going into their waterways that they need to survive, or things like sewage getting into their waterways, and that's threatening them too. So there's actually, as with many animals who are protected, there's actually often more than one reason why they become endangered or threatened. So now diamondback turtles, they are amazing species. We don't want to lose them in the wild. Like all turtles, they do lay eggs, like I mentioned, the mother does. Another problem in some parts of the world, not as much here, but in many parts of the world, people eat turtle eggs. So, and that's become a huge problem actually with things like sea turtles. They come ashore to lay their eggs. People gather them to collect them because they are a popular food item. And that's why we have sea turtles, and some of the beaches that they live on, they come to nest on, are protected. So anything we can think of that we want to tell them about the diamondback today?
Nope.
Like I said, she is an aquatic turtle. You can see she has these big flat feet. If you saw our last video, we had a box turtle out. The box turtle had shorter, stubbier feet. Aquatic turtles tend to have big flat feet that they kind of use like flippers to swim through the water, and they're actually pretty fast. People think of turtles as slow, but aquatic turtles can actually swim quite fast. Now, most turtles are what we call omnivorous, meaning they both like to eat both plants and animal animal diet. But in the case of aquatic turtles, they tend to lean a little bit towards eating meat. So she might eat some aquatic plants, but she's more likely to be eating meat. So for her, it would be things like aquatic invertebrates, animals that live in the water, things like little crabs, little mussels, snails that live in the water. She might eat some aquatic insects, things like that. And in that sense, she plays a very important role in the ecosystem. Because she's there eating all those smaller critters, they help to keep those numbers down. Because all animals in the ecosystem that are there belong there and they're important. And when you take an animal out, like a diamondback terrapin, it can mean the numbers of those other animals start to increase, which is not always a good thing. So that's our turtle Jemmy. I'm going to put her away and bring out another species.
Bye.
Okay. The second animal we're bringing out today, I'm going to bring him close so you can see a little bit better. It's not everybody's favorite animal, but I happen to think they're actually really cool. Whoopsies. Didn't mean to scare you. So this is obviously a spider. Like all spiders, it has 8 legs and 2 body parts. It has the top part, which is the cephalothorax, which is kind of like the head and chest fused together. And then it's got a bottom part. The bigger part on the bottom is actually what we call the abdomen, and that is like your belly. It's where all the digestive organs would be. Now, Forrest, can you tell everybody what type of spider this is?
This is a Mexican red knee spider.
Sure. Actually, Mexican red knee
Tarantula,
right. So this is actually a member of the tarantula family. Tarantulas are found all around the world on all different continents. Now, where does this particular one come from originally? So it's right there in the name. Mexico, right. So this is a species you would find in Mexico, so not here in the U.S. They are a protected species, and actually many species of tarantulas are protected, and there's a few reasons for that, which we'll talk about in a bit. Now, the particular status of this one is actually what we call a threatened species. And do you know what a threatened species is, Forrest?
A threatened species is kind of like right behind endangered.
Yeah, it's actually 2 steps below endangered. So endangered is when an animal is at risk of becoming extinct. Right below that, there's a classification called vulnerable, which is the animal's not endangered yet, but they're at risk of becoming endangered because the numbers are really dropping. And then below that, there's what we call threatened. And threatened are animals that the numbers are dropped down. We need to protect them. They're not considered endangered yet or even vulnerable yet, but they are at risk of becoming endangered in the near future. So we enact protections to help to prevent that. So Mexican red knee tarantulas get their names because I don't know if you can see it on him. It's a little hard to get him on the video, but he has actually got red markings around what would be his knees and the joints in his legs. So his are kind of pinkish. He's actually still a young tarantula. He's not quite full grown. He is less than a year old at this point. And tarantulas are actually pretty long species. Some species of tarantula, it can actually take up to 6 or 7 years for them to go full grown. This one is not even quite a year old yet. So he's young, he's pretty big, but when he's done growing, he'll actually get pretty much almost twice as big as he is right now. So tarantulas are your big spiders. A lot of people think they're really, really scary. But the truth of the matter is that tarantulas are some of the least dangerous spiders. Now, Forrest, what do all spiders have that they can inject?
Venom.
Venom, right. And actually, what do we call this particular spider?
Venom.
Yeah, because we're really original here, so we named him Venom. So all spiders have venom, and that's something that they use to catch their prey. They catch their prey, they bite it, they inject the venom. Now, even for a big tarantula, their prey are usually pretty small. They're usually other insects or other small animals, not human beings. We're way too big for any tarantula or any spider that exists on this earth to consider a meal, basically. So the venom is used to basically subdue their prey. Now, in the case of tarantulas actually have very low venom toxicity, which means that their venom is not very strong. There is no tarantula that actually has venom strong enough to kill a human being. Now, there are spiders in the world that do have strong enough venom where it could seriously harm or even kill a human. It's very few species, but there are a few species around the world that can do that, such as like black widows or brown recluse spiders. But none of them are tarantulas. Tarantulas are low venom species, which with that and their bigger size is why they've actually become popular as pets. Now, some people are like, oh my God, I would never want a tarantula as a pet. That's too scary. But there are people who actually really enjoy spiders, such as myself and Forrest. We actually think they're really cool. And they collect them as pets. Now, this has become a problem in the wild for tarantulas like our friend Venom here, because in some cases, people have been over collecting them, and they're collected for two main reasons. One reason is for pets, because a lot of people collect things like spiders and insects now. They get over collected to be sold as pets. The other problem is that in some places in the world, spiders are eaten. And some people may think it's gross, but remember, every place in the world has different diets and we all eat different things. So there's some things here in the US that we eat that in other parts of the world, they would be like, oh, I would never eat that. So in some parts of the world, tarantulas are a popular food item. And when you think about it, they're actually very high in protein and low fat, so they're not an unhealthy food item. But because of this and because of the pet trade, they're getting way over collected in the wild, and that has seriously reduced their numbers. So they've had to put protection on many, many species of tarantulas. Now, another reason that they're becoming endangered in this specific, or threatened in the wild for this specific species, is climate change. And climate change, you might have learned about it in school, is something that's impacting the whole globe right now, and it's changing a lot of environments. Some environments more drastically than others. Now, the Mexican red knee, they live in Mexico. They're not a tropical animal. Some tarantulas are. There's many tropical tarantulas, but the red knee actually lives in drier areas of Mexico. So you might find him in like grasslands, places that are desert, or even some mountainous areas, but not really wet like the rainforest. And what's happening in some of these drier areas is they're getting drier and drier, because that's what climate change does. It can change weather patterns and affect the amount of rainfall. So you think, oh, desert, you don't need a lot of rainfall. No, you don't, but you do need some rain. And you do need some moisture. And as some deserts are getting even drier and drier and getting less rainfall, it's actually affecting a lot of the species that live with them. Because even though a desert species can go with less water, it still needs some water to survive. So that's some of the reasons why our friend Venom here and his species are considered threatened right now. There are even some species of tarantula that are considered endangered or even critically endangered. And critically endangered just means they're very, very close to extinction right now. So can you think of anything else we want to say about Venom right now?
Personally, I think he's adorable.
Yeah, and that's okay if you think you don't. We don't ask that people love spiders or want to cuddle with them or anything like that. But what we ask is that, and what we hope through our programs and educating people, is that people respect spiders and animals like them and respect that the role they play in the ecosystem.
Don't squish them.
Just like our diamondback terrapin Jemmy has a role in the ecosystem, so do spiders. And one of the biggest things they do is they keep down the small insect populations, which nobody wants small insect populations to get under control. It's not a good thing. So, and we're going to talk more about animals like Venom. We're going to do another series, hopefully in a few weeks, on invertebrates, where we'll talk about insects and arachnids and other animals that don't have a backbone. So we're going to put Venom away, and then we're going to get one more animal out. However, the other animal is actually going to take a minute or two, so we are going to pause this video while we do that.
Don't squish spiders.
Don't squish spiders, right? Hi, we're back, and I have our last species that we're going to talk about today. Now, this is obviously a snake. She's a pretty good sized snake, and she's actually what we call a red-tailed boa. Now, red-tailed boas are members of the boa family. Boas are common snakes that known for having heavy-bodied, and they're found throughout North and South America. Now, the red-tailed boa is actually a member of the boa constrictor family, and boa constrictors are pretty good sized boas. They're not the largest in the world. The largest boas you're going to find are like anacondas, but they're still a good size like most boas. She has a nice thick body that's typical of those type of snakes. She also, like boa constrictors do, will wrap around and squeeze her prey. And that's actually how they get the name constrictor. Now, truthfully, most snakes are constrictors. Even little ones you find here in Virginia, like corn snakes, milk snakes, they are constrictors also. About 80% of snakes in the world do constrict. But for some reason, boas actually got it in there. These particular boas got it in their name. Now, this one is currently about 10 years old. We rescued her several years ago. She is a female. We call her Manu. And she is presently probably 8 to 9 feet long. You'll see she's wrapping around my body right now. She's not trying to hurt me or anything like that. She's not trying to constrict me. She does not consider me food. She's just trying to get comfortable. So she's kind of treating me like a tree where she's moving around, exploring, and trying to find a comfortable space to hold on. So boa constrictors in the wild, they are not considered endangered per se as a whole, but there are some subspecies and particular species of boa constrictors depending on where they're located, because they're found in many, many different countries throughout Mexico, Central America, and South America. So in quite a few of those countries, they are considered either endangered and threatened, vulnerable, something along those lines. And there's a few reasons for that. One of the reasons is this beautiful skin. Now, like all reptiles, boa constrictors have scales on their body. One big long piece in this case that it comes off in for the snake. Now, a lot of people think snake skin is beautiful, and snakes sometimes will be hunted for their skins, and they'll be used for making like purses, belts, bags, boots, things like that. So that historically has been a problem. Excuse me, I'm going to get a better grip on her. She is a mover.
Yeah, she's really hyper.
Got her. Sorry for that. So that has been a problem historically with many snakes in the wild, particularly for boa constrictors, because they're large and you can get a lot of skin off of them. Another reason is because they have sometimes been hunted for meat, because some places they do eat snakes as meat. So that's another problem. The third, and probably one of the biggest problems for boa constrictors right now, is habitat loss. So every day we're losing acres and acres of rainforest around the world. And rainforest can be found on many different continents. The biggest rainforests you're going to find, though, are in South America. And that is where these guys live. They live in the rainforest areas in different countries throughout South and Central America. They are what we call a semi-arboreal species, meaning that they like to spend time in the trees, where some snakes only like to spend time on the land. Boa constrictors tend to go back and forth. When they're younger, they spend more time in the trees. When they're older and they get heavier, like my big girl here, they tend to spend more time on the ground. So they rely on the rainforest for their habitat, and that's where they find their food. They don't adapt well to other environments. And because we're losing so many of our rainforests right now, it is impacting many species that live in them, like boa constrictors. Now, Manu we rescued quite a few years ago. When we got her, she was smaller than this. Snakes tend to grow quickly. They do the bulk of their growing the first few years of our life. She's probably about 10 years old now. And we think she's about 8 to 9 feet long. We haven't officially measured her in a while, but we think she's about that. And she probably weighs a good 30 to 40 pounds at this point. Again, heavy body here. Now, a lot of what you see under here, there is fat, but it's also a lot of big muscles under here. So big, heavy muscles on this snake. Now, Forrest, can you think of anything else I can tell them about Manu today?
She just wants to explore out here.
She's finally calmed down, actually, and settled down. I think she's some reason comfortable across my shoulder. I'm going to see if I can turn around and get you guys a better view of her face today. Do you want to say hi, Manu?
No.
Oh, and what you see here actually is her underbelly. You'll notice it's a little bit different than her back. That's pretty typical for snakes. The underbelly is covered with scales that we call scutes. They tend not to be as heavily patterned, and the scutes on their underbelly actually help snakes to move. Snakes can move their body. Some snakes move side to side, but some snakes tend to move in a straight line, and that's pretty typical with heavier snakes like our boa constrictor here. She's going to move her body straighter when she moves, and actually maybe I'll put her on the ground for a demonstration in a bit. It's actually the scutes on the underside of her body that she can slightly detach that help her to move along. So now that she's settled, let me see if I can get her head a little bit closer so you can see what she looks like. There we go. She's got, you see, teeny little eyes like most snakes. Snakes' vision is not really that great. They rely more on their senses like smell, and snakes also have the ability to sense vibrations. They don't have ears the way we do, but they can sense vibrations around them. And you can see sometimes she'll flick out her tongue. She's got a black tongue. Like all snakes, she uses her tongue for smelling. Snakes have an organ on the inside of their mouth called the Jacob's organ, and they actually are taking samples of the air into their mouth and smelling it. So before we go today, I'm going to put her down so you can kind of see how a boa constrictor like her would move along the ground. So we're going to put it now that she doesn't want to go to the ground, we're going to put her down to the ground. Before she kept wanting to get down. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks, but here is Manu. You can see she's kind of moving more in a straight line. She's exploring the chair over there. And when she's done, she'll probably just find a nice place to curl up and sleep. So, because snakes actually are not very active, they actually spend a lot of time sleeping. Okay, so that is all of our animals today that we wanted to show you. Again, the topic was protected animals. We talked about extinct animals, extinct in the wild, endangered, vulnerable, threatened, and species of concern. So those are all different classifications. Every one of those classifications has protection, but depending on the level, that really determines kind of what protections are out there. So protections might be like protections you can't take them out of the wild, or you can't disturb their nesting sites, or you can't develop in their habitats. So different laws are enacted to try to help these species where the numbers are going down. So that's it for today. We hope that you enjoyed the video. This was, again, the second video in our series. We're hoping next week to do another video that we're going to do on native species and talk about species right here in Virginia. We'd originally planned to do it this week, but because of some things going on with the animals, we had to change it around. So we focused on the protected animals this week. If you'd like to know more about our organization, you can visit our website. We are www.northmountain.org. All of the videos that we're making, we're actually uploading to our website. And also included with the videos, we're including some other attachments, some questionnaires on the videos if you'd like to use them with your kids or teachers with their students, just to kind of review what you might have remembered from the video. Also, we've attached some coloring sheets and things like that of the different species that we've talked about, which could be a lot of fun to color in. You can also visit our Facebook page because we're going to be posting all our videos there. Also, we are posting other neat things on our Facebook right now, especially during this time where we're all at home. So right now this week we've been posting things on different animals that live here in Virginia. So, and we've been focusing on the official state animals. So Forrest, do you remember what the state bird is of Virginia?
It was like a cardinal.
Yes, the northern cardinal.
Northern cardinal.
Northern cardinal. So on our Facebook page, we've been posting information, attachments, coloring sheets, things like that about different official state animals, northern cardinal, and there's also in Virginia state mammal, state insect, state reptile, state amphibian. We're going to post about all of those. We're not going to tell you what they all are here. You got to go to our Facebook page. We're also doing a picture of the day, mystery picture of the day on our Facebook right now, where every day we post an up-close picture of a certain part of an animal, a certain part of their body, and it's a mystery. We post it, we don't post what it is or what part of the body it is, and we want to see if people can guess. So every day we post a new picture, and then at the end of the day we post the answer on the same thread. So again, visit our Facebook page, visit us on northmountain.org. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope everybody's staying home, staying safe, and hope to see you all soon.
Don't get sick. Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.